The crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the opulent ballroom as Jasmine Reed stood frozen, her heart hammering against her ribs. Around her, Miami's elite gasped in collective shock, their champagne glasses suspended mid-air. The man who had just grabbed her wrist, Vincent Moretti, heir to one of the city's most powerful crime families, was now sprawled unconscious on the marble floor. "Did she just—" someone whispered. "A receptionist took down Vincent Moretti," another voice hissed. Jay Park's dark eyes locked onto hers across the crowd, his expression unreadable. In her simple black dress, the only formal wear she owned, Jasmine had never felt more exposed. She had come to this gala as his employee, his convenient solution to a social obligation. But in one explosive moment, she had revealed skills that no receptionist should possess. The room fell silent, except for the soft jazz music that seemed absurdly cheerful, given the unconscious heir lying at her feet. As security rushed toward her, and Jay's jaw tightened with dangerous recognition, Jasmine realized she might have just signed both their death sentences. "Welcome to Korean Mafia lovers. Hey there. Please let us know where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel. Your support makes the difference for us to continue bringing you these intense stories." 3 weeks earlier, Jasmine Reed had been running late for work again, her worn heels clicking against the polished marble of the Park Industries building in downtown Miami. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting everything in golden light that made even her discount store blazer look almost professional. "Good morning, Mr. Park," she called out as she slipped behind her reception desk, hoping her boss hadn't noticed her breathless arrival. Jae-hyun J. Park emerged from the elevator, his presence commanding immediate attention. At 35, he moved with fluid confidence, his tailored charcoal suit emphasizing broad shoulders and a lean frame. His dark hair was styled with precision, and his intense brown eyes missed nothing as they swept across the lobby. "Ms. Reed," he acknowledged with a slight nod, his accent carrying just a hint of his Korean heritage. "I need you to clear my schedule for this afternoon. Something's come up." Jasmine's fingers flew across her keyboard. "You have the Henderson meeting at 2 and the quarterly review at 4. Should I reschedule both?" "Reschedule Henderson. Cancel the review." His voice carried an edge that made her look up sharply. In 6 months as his receptionist, she'd learned to read his moods through subtle changes in tone. Today, something was different. "Is everything all right, sir?" For a moment, his mask slipped, revealing something darker beneath the polished exterior. "Family business," he said simply, then turned toward his private elevator. Jasmine watched him go, noting the tension in his shoulders. She'd always wondered about Jay Park's family. He spoke fluent Korean when he thought no one was listening, and certain visitors made him switch languages entirely. There were meetings behind closed doors, men in expensive suits who never appeared on official schedules. Her phone buzzed with a text from her grandmother. "Mija, the doctor wants to see me again next week. Don't worry, just routine." Jasmine's stomach clenched. Nothing was ever just routine when it came to Abuela's heart condition. The medication alone cost more than Jasmine made in a week, even with the surprisingly generous salary Jay paid. She'd been taking night classes in business administration, hoping to move up, but every spare dollar went to medical bills. "Everything okay?" She looked up to find Marcus Chen, one of the junior executives, leaning against her desk with concern. Marcus was sweet, always bringing coffee and asking about her grandmother. He was also completely oblivious to the fact that their boss was far more than a successful businessman. "Just family stuff," she said, echoing Jay's earlier words. "You know, there's a company gala next month. Employees can bring guests. Maybe you'd like to—" "Marcus!" Jay's voice cut through the conversation like a blade. Neither had heard him approach. "Don't you have a presentation to prepare?" Marcus straightened immediately. "Yes, sir. Right away, sir." He shot Jasmine an apologetic look before hurrying away. Jay's dark eyes lingered on Jasmine longer than necessary. "Ms. Reed, I need to see you in my office." Her heart skipped. In 6 months, she'd never been called to his office. She grabbed her notepad and followed him into the elevator, hyper-aware of his presence in the confined space. He smelled like expensive cologne and something else, something that reminded her of danger. His office occupied the entire top floor, with panoramic views of Biscayne Bay. The decor was minimalist but expensive, all clean lines and subtle luxury. Korean art hung alongside modern pieces, and she noticed a small shrine in one corner. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from his massive desk. Jasmine perched on the edge, notepad ready. "What can I do for you, Mr. Park?" He studied her for a long moment, fingers steepled beneath his chin. "Tell me about your background, Ms. Reed." The question caught her off guard. "My background? Sir? Your education, your family, how you ended up working here." Heat crept up her neck. Was he questioning her qualifications? "I have an associate's degree in business, working on my bachelor's at night. I grew up here in Miami, live with my grandmother. I applied because Park Industries has an excellent reputation, and I needed—" She stopped before admitting how desperately she'd needed the job. "You needed the money," he finished. "Yes, sir." "And your grandmother's medical condition?" Jasmine's blood ran cold. How did he know? "I'm sorry, I don't understand." "I make it my business to know about my employees, Ms. Reed, especially those who handle sensitive information." He leaned back, expression unreadable. "Your grandmother has a heart condition, expensive medication. You work days and attend classes nights. You live in a one-bedroom apartment in Little Havana, walk to work because you can't afford a car." The notepad trembled in her hands. "Sir, I can assure you my personal situation doesn't affect my work performance. I'm not questioning your performance." He stood and moved to the window, hands clasped behind his back. "I'm offering you an opportunity." "What kind of opportunity?" He turned to face her, something in his expression making her breath catch. "I need a companion for a social event, someone who can handle themselves in high-pressure situations, someone who won't ask questions." "I don't understand." "There's a gala next month. Very exclusive, very important. I need someone to accompany me who won't be intimidated by the atmosphere." Jasmine's mind raced. "You want me to be your date?" "I want you to be my employee, performing a specific function. You would be compensated, of course, generously." "How generously?" "Enough to cover your grandmother's medical expenses for the next year." The air left her lungs. A year's worth of medical bills? That would change everything. She could focus on school, maybe help Abuela with home improvements, but something about this felt dangerous. "What exactly would I need to do?" "Attend the gala, look appropriate, stay by my side, and under no circumstances reveal anything about your background or connection to this company." "Why me? You could take anyone." For the first time since she'd known him, J. Park smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face. "Because, Ms. Reed, you're the only person in this building who looks at me and sees a boss, not a threat." If only he knew how wrong he was. Jasmine had grown up in Little Havana, where you learn to recognize dangerous men before you learn to walk. She'd known from day one that J. Park was dangerous. She just hadn't cared, because dangerous men often paid well, and she needed the money. "I'll need to think about it," she said. "Of course, but don't take too long. The gala is in 3 weeks, and you'll need time to prepare." As she stood to leave, he called her name. "Ms. Reed, whatever you decide, this conversation stays between us." Walking back to her desk, Jasmine's mind churned. A year's worth of medical bills, financial security, the chance to focus on her future instead of just surviving. But as she settled back into her chair and noticed how Marcus avoided eye contact, she couldn't shake the feeling she was about to step into something far more complicated than a simple business arrangement. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Abuela. "The pharmacy says insurance won't cover the new medication. Don't worry, Mija, we'll figure it out." Jasmine stared at the message, then at the elevator leading to Jay's office. She thought about her grandmother's tired eyes, the stack of medical bills on their kitchen table, the dreams she'd put on hold to keep their heads above water. Sometimes the only way to survive was to take the risk. She picked up her phone and typed, "I'll do it." The response came immediately. "Good. We start preparing tomorrow." As she deleted the conversation, Jasmine wondered what she'd just agreed to. But with Abuela's medication costs looming and her future hanging in the balance, she pushed doubt aside. After all, How dangerous could one gala really be? The next morning, Jasmine arrived to find an elegant white box on her desk, tied with silver ribbon. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a business card for an exclusive Coral Gables boutique and a note in Jay's precise handwriting. Appointment at 2 p.m. Take the afternoon off. Fancy, Marcus commented, appearing with 2 coffee cups. Secret admirer. Before Jasmine could answer, Jay's voice cut through the lobby. Mr. Chen, I believe you have reports to review. Marcus practically jumped. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. He set down both cups and hurried away. Jay approached her desk, expression unreadable. The appointment is with Elena Vasquez. She'll take care of everything you need for the gala. Don't worry about the cost. Mr. Park, I can't let you buy me clothes. You can and you will. His tone brooked no argument. This is a business expense, Ms. Reed. Nothing more. But the way his eyes lingered on her face suggested it might be something more, at least for him. At 2 o'clock sharp, Jasmine found herself in the most expensive boutique she'd ever entered. Elena Vasquez was a striking woman in her 50s, with silver hair and sharp eyes that catalogued every detail of Jasmine's appearance within seconds. So you're Jay's mysterious companion, Elena said, circling Jasmine like a predator. Interesting choice. I'm just his employee, Jasmine said quickly. Elena laughed, a sound like crystal chimes. Honey, I've been dressing Jay Park for 5 years. He's never brought me an employee before. She pulled a measuring tape from her pocket. Arms up. As Elena took measurements, Jasmine tried to process what she'd said. You've been dressing him for 5 years? Among other things, I dress a very exclusive clientele in Miami, men who need their women to look perfect for very important occasions. Elena's hands were quick and professional. Tell me, what do you know about the gala you're attending? Nothing, really, just that it's important. The Castellano Foundation Gala, Elena said, selecting dresses from a rack. Very exclusive, very dangerous. Jasmine's blood chilled. Dangerous? Elena met her eyes in the mirror. Let's just say the guest list reads like a who's who of people you don't want to cross. She held up a stunning black gown. This one. It says I belong here without screaming, look at me. The dress was gorgeous, simple but elegant, with clean lines that would flatter her figure without being inappropriate, but Eleanor's words echoed in her mind. Very dangerous. Eleanor, what exactly does Jay do? The older woman's hands stilled. You really don't know, do you? I know he runs Park Industries' import-export business. Oh, honey. Eleanor's voice was soft with something that might have been pity. Jay Park doesn't just run an import business. He runs the most powerful Korean organization on the East Coast. The boutique suddenly felt too small, too warm. Organization? Some people call it the Korean Mafia. Others prefer family business. But whatever you call it, Jay Park is not a man to be trifled with. Elena continued working, apparently unbothered by the bombshell she'd dropped. The question is, why is he taking someone like you to an event like this? Jasmine's mind raced. Korean Mafia. That explained the mysterious meetings, the way people deferred to him, the careful way he spoke about family business. And she'd agreed to be his date to a gathering of criminals. I need to leave, she said, stepping away from the mirror. No, you don't. Elena's voice was firm. You need to listen very carefully. If Jay Park asked you to accompany him to this gala, he has his reasons. And if you try to back out now, you'll make yourself a problem. Trust me, you don't want to be Jay Park's problem. Are you threatening me? I'm trying to help you survive. Elena's expression softened. Look, I don't know your story, but I can see you're not like his usual companions. You're not some society princess or mob daughter. You're real, and for some reason, that's what he needs right now. What do you mean? Elena glanced toward the entrance, then lowered her voice. There are rumors. Tensions between the Korean families and the Italians. The Castellano Gala is supposed to be neutral ground, but everyone knows Vincent Moretti will be there, and Vincent has been making moves against Jay's territory. The name Vincent Moretti sent a chill down Jasmine's spine. Why are you telling me this? Because you're going to be standing next to one of the most powerful men in Miami while he's surrounded by his enemies. And because something about you tells me you're stronger than you look. Elena held up the black dress again. This dress, These shoes, this jewelry, they're not just clothes. They're armor, and you're going to need them." 2 hours later, Jasmine emerged with more expensive items than she'd ever owned. The dress alone cost more than she made in 3 months, but Elena's words haunted her more than the price tags. Korean Mafia, Vincent Moretti, enemies. She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice the black sedan following her until she was 3 blocks from her apartment. Her grandmother's voice echoed in memory. "Always watch your back, Mija. In this neighborhood, paranoia keeps you alive." Jasmine ducked into a corner store and watched through the window as the sedan cruised past slowly. The windows were tinted, but she caught a glimpse of the driver, a man with olive skin and dark hair. Not Korean. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Beautiful dress. Shame if something happened to it." Jasmine's hands shook as she deleted the message. Someone was watching her. Someone knew about the boutique, about the dress, about the gala. She waited 20 minutes before leaving, taking a circuitous route through busy streets and crowded markets. The sedan didn't reappear, but the feeling of being watched never left. When she finally reached her apartment, her grandmother was waiting with worried eyes. "Mija, you look pale. What happened?" Jasmine set down the boutique bags and sank onto their worn couch. "Abuela, what would you do if someone offered you a lot of money to do something dangerous?" Her grandmother's weathered hands cupped Jasmine's face. "I would ask myself if the danger was worth the price. And then I would remember that sometimes the most dangerous thing is doing nothing at all. What if the person offering the money isn't who you thought they were? Then I would decide if I could live with the consequences of walking away." Abuela's dark eyes were serious. "But I would also remember that sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't." That night, Jasmine lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The black dress hung in her closet like a beautiful threat, and Elena's words played on repeat. Korean Mafia, Vincent Moretti, enemies. She thought about the medical bills, about her grandmother's tired smile, about the dreams she'd put on hold to keep them afloat. And she thought about Jay Park, the way he'd smiled when he said she was the only person who saw him as a boss instead of a threat. The way his presence filled a room, the careful control in his voice, the darkness she'd glimpsed beneath his polished exterior. Elena was right about one thing. Backing out now would make her a problem. And Jasmine had learned long ago that problems had a way of disappearing in Miami. But as she finally drifted off to sleep, one question haunted her dreams. What exactly had Jay Park seen in her that made him think she could handle standing beside him in a room full of his enemies? The answer, she suspected, was something she wasn't ready to face. The morning of the gala arrived with oppressive Miami heat that made the air shimmer. Jasmine had barely slept, her dreams filled with black sedans and faceless threats. She'd spent the week jumping at shadows, but no more mysterious texts had arrived, and the sedan hadn't reappeared. Maybe she'd imagined the whole thing. At work, Jay was unusually quiet, his attention focused on phone calls conducted entirely in Korean. The few words Jasmine recognized from college language classes were not reassuring. Wihyum, danger, jog, enemy, and Jonjang, war. "Ms. Reed," he called as she prepared to leave early for her hair appointment. "A moment." She followed him into his office, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw was set like granite. "Tonight will be challenging," he said without preamble. "There are people who will try to provoke you, to get information from you, to use you against me. Do you understand?" "I understand that you should have told me exactly what I was walking into." His dark eyes sharpened. "What do you mean?" I mean, I know what you really do, Jay. I know about the Korean families, about Vincent Moretti, about the fact that this gala is basically a gathering of criminals in expensive suits." For a long moment he said nothing. Then, slowly, he smiled, but this wasn't the warm smile she'd seen before. This was something predatory. "Eleanor told you." "Does it matter who told me? The point is, you lied." "I omitted certain details." He moved closer, and Jasmine fought the urge to step back. "The question is, are you going to run?" "I should, but you won't." It wasn't a question. He was right, and they both knew it. The money was too important, and backing out now felt more dangerous than going through with it. "Why me, Jay, really? You could have any woman in Miami?" "Because," he said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, "you're the first person in years who's looked at me and seen something worth saving." The words hit her like a physical blow. Before she could respond, he stepped back, the mask sliding into place. "The car will pick you up at 7. Don't be late." 4 hours later, Jasmine stood in front of her bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. The stylist Eleanor recommended had worked magic, transforming her natural curls into an elegant updo that showcased the graceful line of her neck. The makeup was subtle but flawless, emphasizing her dark eyes and full lips. The dress fit like it had been made for her body, the black fabric hugging her curves in all the right places, while maintaining sophisticated elegance. The jewelry, a simple diamond necklace and matching earrings, caught the light with every movement. She looked like she belonged in Jay's world. The question was whether she could survive it. At exactly 7 o'clock, her sleek black Mercedes pulled up outside her building. The driver was a young Korean man who introduced himself as Min and treated her with respectful deference usually reserved for royalty. "Mr. Park is waiting at the venue," he explained as they glided through Miami's evening traffic. "He wanted me to tell you that you look beautiful." The Castellano Foundation Gala was being held at the Vizcaya Museum, the opulent Italian Renaissance-style villa built by industrialist James Deering in the early 1900s. Tonight, it was transformed into something from a fairy tale or a nightmare, depending on your perspective. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway, and men in expensive tuxedos escorted women dripping in diamonds and designer gowns. But Jasmine's trained eye, honed by years of living in a neighborhood where survival depended on reading people quickly, caught subtle signs that this wasn't just another charity event. The security was too tight, too professional. The guests moved with careful awareness of people who knew they were surrounded by enemies. And there were too many men whose jackets hung in a way that suggested concealed weapons. Jay was waiting at the entrance, and Jasmine's breath caught at the sight of him. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo that emphasized his broad shoulders and lean frame. His dark hair was styled to perfection, and his intense brown eyes seemed to take in every detail of her appearance in a single glance. "You're stunning," he said, offering her his arm. "You clean up pretty well yourself." As they entered the museum, Jasmine felt the weight of dozens of eyes on them. Conversations paused, heads turned, and she caught fragments of whispered speculation in multiple languages. Who is she? Never seen her before. Park's taste is improving. Jay's hand settled on the small of her back, a gesture both protective and possessive. "Ignore them," he murmured in her ear. "Tonight, you're untouchable." The ballroom was breathtaking, with soaring ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of Biscayne Bay. A string quartet played softly, while servers circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres that probably cost more than Jasmine's monthly rent. But beneath the elegant veneer, she could feel tension crackling like electricity before a storm. "Jay Park." The voice was smooth, cultured, and carried just a hint of an Italian accent. Jasmine turned to see a man approaching, tall, handsome in a classical way, with olive skin and dark hair slicked back from his face. He wore his tuxedo like armor, and his smile never reached his cold blue eyes. "Vincent," Jay replied, his voice carefully neutral. "I wasn't sure you'd be here tonight." "Wouldn't miss it. The Castellano Foundation does such important work." Vincent's gaze slid to Jasmine, and she fought the urge to shiver. "And who is this lovely creature?" "Jasmine Reed," Jay said before she could speak. "Jasmine, this is Vincent Moretti." The name hit her like a slap. This was the man Eleanor had warned her about, the one making moves against Jay's territory. And he was looking at her like she was a particularly interesting puzzle he intended to solve. "Enchanted," Vincent said, taking her hand and raising it to his lips. His touch made her skin crawl, but she forced herself to smile politely. "Mr. Moretti, please call me Vincent, any friend of Jay's." He let the sentence hang, his eyes never leaving her face. "Tell me, Miss Reed, how did you and Jay meet?" The question was casual, but Jasmine could feel the trap hidden beneath it. This was exactly what Jay had warned her about, people trying to get information from her. "At work," she said simply. "Ah, you work together. How modern." Vincent's smile sharpened. "And what is it you do?" Before Jasmine could answer, Jay's hand tightened on her back. "Vincent, I believe your date is looking for you." Vincent glanced across the room to where a stunning blonde in a red dress was watching them with obvious impatience. "Ah, yes, Sophia. Beautiful but demanding." He turned back to Jasmine. "Perhaps we'll have a chance to continue our conversation later, Miss Reed. I'm very interested in getting to know Jay's colleagues better." As he walked away, Jasmine let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "That was Vincent Moretti," she whispered. "That was Vincent Moretti, and you handled him perfectly." "I feel like I need a shower." Jay's laugh was low and genuine. "That's the appropriate response. Come on, let me introduce you to some people who won't make your skin crawl." The next hour passed in a blur of introductions and small talk. Jay guided her through the crowd with practiced ease, introducing her simply as Jasmine without elaborating on their relationship. She met Korean businessmen who spoke in careful euphemisms, Italian socialites who smiled with their mouths but not their eyes, and a handful of people who seemed genuinely nice but were probably just better at hiding their criminal activities. Through it all, she was aware of Vincent Moretti watching them from across the room, his cold blue eyes tracking their every movement. "You're doing beautifully," Jay murmured during a brief moment when they were alone. "I know this isn't easy. It's like being in a room full of beautiful predators." "That's exactly what it is." His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "But you're not prey, Jasmine. You're with me." The simple statement sent warmth flooding through her chest, followed immediately by a stab of fear. She was starting to care about this man, really care, and that was dangerous for both of them. The evening might have continued peacefully if not for the moment when Vincent Moretti decided to make his move. Jasmine had excused herself to the ladies' room, needing a moment to breathe and collect herself. She was touching up her lipstick when Vincent appeared in the mirror behind her, having somehow entered the women's restroom without anyone noticing. "Hello again, Miss Reed." Jasmine spun around, her heart hammering. "This is the ladies' room." "So it is." He stepped closer, effectively blocking her path to the door. "I was hoping we could finish our conversation." "I don't think we have anything to talk about." "Oh, but we do." His smile was all teeth, no warmth. "You see, I've been asking around about you. Jasmine Reed, receptionist at Park Industries, lives in Little Havana with her sick grandmother, takes night classes at Miami-Dade College, very ordinary." Fear crawled up Jasmine's spine, but she kept her voice steady. "I'm flattered by your interest, but the thing is," Vincent continued as if she hadn't spoken, "Jay Park doesn't do ordinary. He doesn't bring receptionists to galas. He doesn't hold hands with employees, which makes me wonder, what makes you so special? Maybe you should ask him. Maybe I should ask you." In one fluid movement he grabbed her wrist, his grip just tight enough to hurt. "What are you really to him, Miss Reed? What does Jay Park's little receptionist know that makes her worth protecting?" The touch triggered something deep and primal in Jasmine's brain, a memory of her father teaching her to fight before he died, of her grandmother's voice telling her that sometimes the only way to survive was to show them exactly who you were. "Let go of me," she said quietly. "I don't think so. Not until you tell me." Jasmine moved without thinking, muscle memory taking over. Her free hand shot up, palm striking Vincent's nose with a sharp crack. As his grip loosened in shock, she grabbed his wrist, twisted, and used his own momentum to send him crashing into the marble wall. Vincent Moretti, heir to one of Miami's most powerful crime families, slumped unconscious to the floor of the ladies' room, blood trickling from his broken nose. For a moment, Jasmine stood frozen, staring at what she'd done. Then reality crashed over her like a wave. She'd just assaulted Vincent Moretti at a gala full of his allies, while wearing a dress that cost more than her car. Jay was going to kill her, if Vincent's people didn't kill her first. The ballroom erupted into chaos the moment Jasmine emerged from the ladies' room, her face pale but her chin held high. Word of Vincent Moretti's unconscious state had spread through the crowd like wildfire, and now she found herself at the center of a storm that threatened to destroy everything. "There she is!" Sophia, Vincent's date, pointed a perfectly manicured finger at Jasmine. "She attacked Vincent. I saw her come out of the bathroom." The crowd parted like the Red Sea as Jasmine walked toward where Jay stood near the bar, his face a mask of controlled fury. But she couldn't tell if the fury was directed at her or the situation. "Is it true?" The question came from an elderly Italian man with silver hair and cold eyes. "Did this woman assault Vincent Moretti?" "I defended myself," Jasmine said clearly, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent ballroom. "Mr. Moretti grabbed me without permission. I responded appropriately." A murmur rippled through the crowd. In the world these people inhabited, respect and boundaries were everything. If Vincent had truly grabbed her without provocation, he'd violated an unspoken code. "She's lying." Sophia's voice was shrill. Vincent would absolutely grab a woman without permission," a new voice interrupted. "The question is why." All eyes turned to Jay, who moved through the crowd with predatory grace until he stood beside Jasmine. His hand settled on her waist, a gesture of unmistakable possession and protection. "The real question," Jay continued, his voice deadly quiet, "is why Vincent Moretti followed my companion into a private space and attempted to intimidate her. What exactly was he hoping to accomplish?" The elderly Italian man, who Jasmine now realized must be someone very important in Vincent's organization, studied them both with calculating eyes. "Perhaps we should ask Vincent himself when he regains consciousness." "Perhaps we should," Jay agreed. "But until then, I suggest everyone remember that this is supposed to be neutral ground. Attacks on guests, whether physical or otherwise, are not acceptable." The tension in the room was suffocating. Jasmine could feel dozens of eyes on her, some curious, some hostile, all trying to figure out exactly what she was and why Jay Park was willing to go to war over a receptionist. "Jay." The voice belonged to an elegant Korean woman in her 50s who approached them with the kind of confidence that suggested she was used to being obeyed. "Perhaps it would be best if you and your guest left early tonight." "Aunt Min-jung," Jay said, inclining his head respectfully. "I appreciate your concern, but we're not going anywhere." Aunt Min-jung's eyes flicked to Jasmine, and she saw something there that made her blood run cold: recognition. This woman knew something about her that even Jay didn't know. "Very well," Min-jung said after a long moment. "But remember, nephew, some secrets have a way of revealing themselves at the worst possible moments." Before Jay could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew everyone's attention. Vincent Moretti had regained consciousness and was being helped into the ballroom by two of his men, a white handkerchief pressed to his still bleeding nose. His eyes found Jasmine immediately, and the rage in them was murderous. "You!" he snarled, starting toward her. Jay stepped forward, placing himself between Vincent and Jasmine. "I wouldn't if I were you." "She broke my nose." She defended herself against an unprovoked attack. Jay's voice carried the kind of authority that made grown men step back. "In front of witnesses." "What witnesses? It was just the two of us." "Actually," a new voice interrupted, "it wasn't." Everyone turned to see a young woman in a server's uniform stepping forward. She looked terrified but determined. "I was cleaning the bathroom next door," she said, her voice shaking. "I heard everything. The man grabbed her and wouldn't let go when she asked him to. She only hit him after he threatened her." Vincent's face went from red to purple. "You're lying." "I'm not," the server said, looking directly at Jasmine. "And I'm not the only one who heard it." The security cameras in the hallway caught the audio. The elderly Italian man's expression darkened as he looked at Vincent. "Is this true? Did you grab this woman without provocation?" "She's nobody," Vincent exploded. "She's just some receptionist. Why does everyone care what happens to—" "Because she's with me," Jay said, his voice cutting through Vincent's rant like a blade. "And anyone who touches what's mine answers to me." The words sent a shiver through Jasmine that had nothing to do with fear. The possessive declaration should have offended her, but instead it made her feel safer than she had all evening. "This isn't over," Vincent snarled, but he was already backing down, his allies clearly unwilling to support him in what was obviously his own mistake. "No," Jay agreed quietly. "It's not." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of tense conversations and careful positioning. Word of the incident had spread beyond the ballroom, and Jasmine found herself the subject of intense scrutiny from every direction. Some people looked at her with newfound respect. Anyone who could take down Vincent Moretti was clearly not to be underestimated. Others watched her with suspicion, wondering what secret she might be hiding. But it was Aunt Min-jung's knowing look that haunted her most. Every time their eyes met across the room, Jasmine felt like the woman was seeing straight through her carefully constructed facade to something she'd tried very hard to forget. When they finally left the gala, Jasmine's feet were killing her, and her nerves were shot. The ride back to her apartment was conducted in tense silence, with Jay staring out the window and Jasmine wondering if she'd just destroyed both their lives. "I'm sorry," she said finally, as they pulled up outside her building. "For what? For hitting him, for causing a scene, for probably ruining whatever you were trying to accomplish tonight." Jay turned to look at her, his dark eyes unreadable. "You defended yourself against a man who was trying to intimidate you. You have nothing to apologize for. But now there's going to be trouble between your families. There was always going to be trouble between our families. Vincent just gave me an excuse to make the first move." He reached over and took her hand. "What I want to know is where you learned to fight like that." Jasmine's stomach dropped. She'd been hoping he wouldn't ask. "My father taught me some basic self-defense before he died." "That wasn't basic self-defense. That was military-grade combat training." "I don't know what you mean." "Jasmine." His voice was gentle but implacable. "I've seen that exact move before. It's taught to special forces operatives and intelligence agents. Where did you really learn it?" The question hung between them like a loaded gun. Jasmine could feel the weight of her secrets pressing down on her, threatening to crush her beneath their burden. "I can't tell you," she whispered. "Can't or won't." "Does it matter?" Jay studied her face for a long moment, and she could see him putting pieces together, forming theories she wasn't ready for him to voice. "Get out of the car, Jasmine." The words were quiet, but they hit her like a physical blow. "Jay, get out of the car, and don't come back to work on Monday. Don't come back at all." 3 days after the gala, Jasmine sat in her grandmother's kitchen, staring at the stack of medical bills that had grown even higher in her absence. She hadn't heard from Jay, hadn't gone to work, and hadn't answered any of the increasingly frantic calls from unknown numbers. Her phone buzzed again. Another text. "Time's up, Agent Reed, we're coming for you." "Mija," her grandmother said softly, settling into the chair across from her. "You need to tell me what's happening." Jasmine looked up at the woman who had raised her after her parents died, the woman who thought her granddaughter was just a receptionist trying to make ends meet. How could she explain that everything was a lie? "Abuela, what would you say if I told you I wasn't who you think I am?" "I would say that I've known you were hiding something since you came home from college with skills you didn't have when you left." Her grandmother's weathered hands covered Jasmine's. "I would say that I've been waiting for you to trust me enough to tell me the truth." "You knew?" "A grandmother knows. The way you check exits when we go somewhere new. The way you can tell when someone is following us. The way you disappear for hours sometimes and come back looking like you've seen ghosts." Abuela's dark eyes were gentle, but knowing. "I know my granddaughter became someone dangerous. The question is whether she's still my granddaughter underneath." Tears burned Jasmine's eyes. "I'm still me. But I've done things, Abuela. Terrible things. For good reasons." "I thought so at the time." "Then tell me." So Jasmine told her everything. About being recruited by the CIA in her senior year of college, about the training, the missions, the 3 years she'd spent infiltrating criminal organizations across the globe. About the assignment that had brought her to Miami to investigate Jay Park's organization. About falling in love with the man she was supposed to destroy. And about the mission that had gone wrong in Seoul 2 years ago, the one that had left her burned and running for her life. "I was supposed to extract intelligence about a weapons trafficking ring," she explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "But the intelligence was false. It was a trap, designed to eliminate a CIA asset, who knew too much about certain government operations. Me. Who set the trap? Someone high up in the agency, someone who decided I was a liability. Jasmine's hands shook as she remembered that night in Seoul, the gunfire, the betrayal, the desperate escape that had left 3 people dead. I've been hiding ever since, trying to stay off the radar. The job with Jay was supposed to be temporary, just long enough to gather intelligence and disappear again. But you fell in love. I fell in love. The admission felt like a confession. And now they've found me, and I've dragged Jay into it. Her grandmother was quiet for a long moment, processing everything she'd heard. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady and sure. Then we fight. Abuela, these people are not the first dangerous people our family has faced. Her grandmother stood and walked to the kitchen window, peering out at the street below. Your grandfather fought in wars, mija. Your father was a police officer in one of the most dangerous cities in the world, and you are stronger than both of them. I can't fight the CIA. You can't fight them alone. Abuela turned back to her with a slight smile. But you're not alone, are you? You have a very powerful, very dangerous man who cares about you. Had. Past tense. I lied to him, Abuela. He'll never trust me again. Men are stupid about trust, her grandmother said dismissively. But they're very smart about protecting what they love. And that man loves you. How can you be so sure? Because he's here. Jasmine spun around to see Jay standing in the kitchen doorway, his dark eyes unreadable. He wore jeans and a black t-shirt instead of his usual suit, and there was something different about his posture, looser, more dangerous. How did you get in? She asked. Your grandmother let me in. After I explained that there were 3 men with guns watching your building. Ice flooded Jasmine's veins. They're here. They're here. And they're not planning to take you alive. Jay stepped into the kitchen, his presence filling the small space. We need to go, now. I'm not going anywhere with you. Yes, you are, because in about 10 minutes, this building is going to be surrounded by federal agents who have orders to eliminate a rogue operative. And because, despite everything you've lied about, I'm not letting them kill you. Why? The question tore from her throat. Why would you help me after what I did? Jay's expression softened slightly. Because 3 days ago, you told me you loved me, and because I've spent the last 72 hours trying to convince myself it was just part of your cover. But I can't, because I know what it looks like when you're lying, and you weren't lying then. Jay. And because, he continued, moving closer, I've been in love with you since the day you told Marcus Chen to back off, because you could handle yourself. I just didn't want to admit it. The confession hit her like a physical blow. You love me? I love you, the real you, Agent Reed, Receptionist Reed, whatever other versions of yourself you're hiding, I love all of them. His hand cupped her face gently. But right now, I need you to trust me enough to let me get you out of here alive. Where will we go? Somewhere safe, somewhere they can't reach you. There is nowhere they can't reach me. There is if you're under the protection of the Korean families. Jay's smile was sharp and dangerous. Vincent Moretti isn't the only one with connections, Jasmine. And after what happened at the Gala, I have allies who are very interested in keeping you safe. Her grandmother cleared her throat. If you two are finished declaring your love, perhaps we should focus on not dying. Jay turned to Abuela with a respectful bow. Mrs. Vasquez, I promise you that your granddaughter will be safe with me. I know she will be. Because if anything happens to her, I will hunt you down and make you wish you had never been born. Despite her small stature, Abuela's voice carried the kind of authority that made Jay straighten. Now go. Both of you. The sound of car doors slamming outside made the decision for them. Jay grabbed Jasmine's hand, pulling her toward the back of the apartment. Fire escape, he said tersely. My car is in the alley. As they climbed out the window onto the rusty metal stairs, Jasmine could hear heavy footsteps in the hallway outside her grandmother's apartment. Her heart hammered against her ribs as they descended as quietly as possible. Jay's black Audi was idling in the alley, driven by the same young man who had picked her up for the gala. Min was behind the wheel, his expression grim but determined. Boss, he said as they slipped into the back seat, We've got company, black SUVs at both ends of the alley. Then we go up, Jay said calmly. Instead of answering, Jay pulled out his phone and made a quick call in Korean. Within seconds, the sound of helicopter rotors filled the air above them. You called a helicopter? Jasmine stared at him in disbelief. I called my cousin. He owes me a favor. Jay's smile was grim. Hold on. The helicopter, a sleek black aircraft with no visible markings, descended into the narrow alley with precision that spoke of military training. A rope ladder dropped from the open door, and Jay was already moving. Ladies first, he said, helping Jasmine grab the ladder. The climb was terrifying, made worse by the sound of gunfire erupting from the street below, but Jay was right behind her, his presence steady and reassuring, even as bullets whined past their heads. They hauled themselves into the helicopter just as the pilot pulled up and away from the building. Through the open door, Jasmine could see black-clad figures swarming the alley below, their faces turned upward in frustration. Where to, cousin? The pilot called back in accented English. The island, Jay replied, and make sure we're not followed. As Miami fell away beneath them, Jasmine finally allowed herself to breathe. But the relief was short-lived as the reality of their situation hit her. Jay, I can't run forever. They'll never stop looking for me. Then we don't run. His dark eyes were hard as steel. We end this. How? By giving them what they want. What they want is me dead. No, Jay said quietly. What they want is their secrets buried. The question is, what secrets are worth killing a federal agent for? Jasmine's mind raced back to that night in Seoul, to the intelligence she'd been sent to retrieve, to the trap that had been waiting for her. There was a weapons deal, American military hardware being sold to North Korean agents, but the intelligence was wrong. The deal was already done and the weapons were already gone. Who was selling the weapons? That's what I was supposed to find out. But when I got there, the only person waiting was a CIA handler I'd never seen before. He tried to kill me. Did you get a name? Marcus Webb, but when I tried to report it later, there was no record of anyone by that name working for the agency. Jay was quiet for a moment, his phone already in his hand. Marcus Webb, he said to whoever answered. I need everything you can find on him. CIA, military, private sector, everything. He hung up and turned back to Jasmine. My people will find him. And when they do, we're going to have a conversation about why he wants you dead. Jay, you don't understand. These people have resources, connections. So do I. His voice was calm, but there was something deadly in his tone. You humiliated Vincent Moretti at the Gala, remember? That made you valuable to my allies, and now that I know you're a trained operative, you're even more valuable. I'm not a killer for hire. I'm not asking you to be. I'm asking you to help me protect what's mine. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. Because you are mine, Jasmine Reed, agent or receptionist or whatever else you want to be, you're mine, and I protect what's mine. As the helicopter began its descent toward a small island off the coast of Miami, Jasmine felt something she hadn't experienced in 2 years. Hope. She was still in danger, still hunted, still facing enemies with vast resources and deadly intentions. But she wasn't alone anymore. She had Jay, with his dangerous smile and protective instincts, and she had herself, not the frightened receptionist or the burned CIA operative, but the woman who had taken down Vincent Moretti in front of half of Miami's underworld. The woman who was done running. All right, she said, meeting Jay's eyes. Let's end this. His smile was sharp and beautiful and full of promise. I was hoping you'd say that. Time had passed and the seasons had changed in Miami, but the memory of that night remained vivid in both their minds. The morning sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse apartment overlooking Biscayne Bay, casting everything in golden light. Jasmine Reed, now Jasmine Park, stood on the balcony, watching the boats navigate the crystal-clear waters below. Her wedding ring caught the light as she lifted her coffee cup. The simple platinum band, a stark contrast to the elaborate diamond engagement ring Jay had given her. Good morning, Mrs. Park. Jay's voice was warm with affection as he wrapped his arms around her from behind, pressing a kiss to the sensitive spot just below her ear. Good morning, Mr. Park, she replied, leaning back against his chest. Sleep well? better than I have in years." His arms tightened around her. "No nightmares, no checking the security feeds every hour, no wondering if today's the day they find us." It had taken months to completely dismantle the weapons trafficking ring and expose the conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of the CIA and organized crime. The cost had been high, but Marcus Webb and his associates were either dead or in federal prison, and the evidence they'd gathered had been enough to ensure that no one would ever come looking for Jasmine again. "Any regrets?" Jay asked. "About which part? Falling in love with a Korean mafia boss? Giving up my career as a spy? Or taking down a government conspiracy? Any of it. All of it." Jasmine turned in his arms, studying the face that had become more precious to her than her own life. "No regrets," she said firmly. "Well, maybe one." "What's that?" "I regret that it took me so long to tell you the truth." Jay's smile was soft and understanding. "We found our way back to each other, that's what matters." As they held each other on the balcony overlooking the city where they'd found each other, Jasmine thought about the journey that had brought them here. The fear, the betrayal, the violence, the impossible choices, all of it had led to this moment, this man, this life she'd never dared to dream of. "What are you thinking about?" Jay asked. "I'm thinking about how sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is exactly what you need to do to save yourself. And I'm thinking that I would do it all again, every dangerous, terrifying, impossible moment, if it meant ending up here with you." Jay's kiss was soft and sweet and full of promise. "Good," he murmured against her lips, "because this is just the beginning." As the sun climbed higher in the Miami sky, Jasmine Reed Park stood in the arms of the man she loved, surrounded by the life they'd built together from the ashes of their dangerous pasts. She had been a spy, a receptionist, a fugitive, and a fighter. But now, finally, she was exactly who she was meant to be. A woman who had found her home in the most unexpected place, with the most dangerous man in the most beautiful love story she could have imagined. And she had never been happier to be exactly who she was.